That night, upon opening the door to his home, Akmotesh found a man writhing in agony upon the floor. The priest had various relics of power and religious significance housed within his sanctum there, and as such took precautions to fortify it against intruders. One such measure were spells and hieroglyphs that he had inscribed near the entrance, designed to inflict pain and paralysis upon intruders. Akmotesh quickly bound the man before defacing the charcoal lettering that held him in duress. Though it was likely the individual was a simple thief, Akmotesh had other suspicions. He conducted a search of the trespasser's person and found only implements of burglary, but nothing to indicate for whom, if anyone, the individual was working. But the priest of Anubis had other ways of getting information, spells and invocations that could fill men's hearts with the terror of the grave. If, however, the intruder was working for the Brotherhood of the Black Star, as Akmotesh suspected, it was possible his zeal and fanaticism would render him immune to the priest's powers. While on the other hand, it was equally likely that it meant he possessed a mind open to suggestion. There was only one way to find out. "No, no!" cried the trespasser, as shadows of gloom and death danced before his vision, the unearthly gaze of Akmotesh, herald of Anubis, looking into his soul from amid their center. "Speak to me, who has sent you to invade my sanctum?" "The Brotherhood of the Black Star sent me. They suspect him of being an infiltrator. They wanted me to find evidence." "You will return to them. You will tell them you found nothing. Should you disobey, death will come for you. And when death comes for you, there is no escape." Akmotesh had considered turning the man over to the city guard, or even the Church of Aias, but there was no guarantee the intruder would stay in custody or stay silent. Akmotesh hoped his method of intimidation was enough to clear his name. Akmotesh took the initiative to strengthen the wards around his dwelling, but no further problems arose in the weeks following the intrusion. Nevertheless, he came to doubt more and more his ability to successfully infiltrate the Brotherhood of the Black Star. It seemed he could only keep up his ruse for so long before being forced to either abandon it completely or betray his god. And indeed, the time came when he was ultimately forced to make this choice. The cult had gathered once again in the hidden chamber below the city streets, and it was announced that it was at this time when the Brotherhood's new members would participate in the ceremony that would mark them as full members of their order. At the directions of the cult seniors, the initiates removed their gray robes, leaving themselves clad in only loincloths and undergarments before the congregation. They were told to form a line, and this they did, extending down the middle of the chamber, flanked on either side by the congregation and facing a cloaked priest at the front. Akmotesh's mind raced as he fell in line with the other initiates. How could he make it through the ceremony without compromising his convictions? "Today," said the presiding cultist as he addressed the initiates, "you stand naked before us, devoid from the trappings and burdens society has placed upon you. But when you leave this place tonight, you shall go forth born anew, clad in the white cloak and black star that represents our order, no longer neophytes in our faith, but brothers and sisters. It is your first step on the path to true salvation and toward becoming one with Zurzalzig, the living God." The first initiate stepped forth from the line, kneeling before the priest, while one of the cult stood behind and to the side of the presider, with a white cloak at the ready. "Are you prepared to join the Brotherhood of the Black Star, to pledge your loyalty and allegiance?" the head cultist asked. "I am," responded the initiate, bowing his head. "Do you profess devotion to the living God, Zurzalzig, our supreme lord from beyond the stars, forsaking the worship of all other gods?" "I do." "And to Ushtar-Nin, his high priest and mouthpiece on earth?" "I do." "Then stand, brother, and join us under the sign of the Black Star." With this, the initiate rose to his feet, and the white cloak was draped around his shoulders, after which he departed and joined the rest of the hooded cultists in the chamber. Akmotesh couldn't go through with this. Though he was thankful it involved no shedding of blood, his conscience prevented him from taking the oath. As quickly and discreetly as possible, he detached from the line and began to make his way toward the chamber's exit. As he neared, two large cultists who stood on either side of the doorway moved to block his exodus. Large ripples and bulges under the sleeves of their robes bespoke heavily muscled frames. Most likely they were former mercenaries or hired thugs, Akmotesh reasoned. "Leaving, brother?" asked one in a deep voice. Akmotesh saw no point in arguing. "Yes, please stand aside." "The Brotherhood awaits your initiation," said the other as the two began to move threateningly upon him. "I have no time for this," Akmotesh said impatiently as he made to circumvent the two men. Suddenly, a great bear-like hand shot out from the sleeve of one of the large cultists. It gripped him by the neck with the strength of a vice as it began to lift him off the ground. The Chemite reached up with his own grip, not vice-like and strong, but rather cold and pulsating with the power of unlife. He clapped it on the knotted wrist of the hand that choked him, and when it touched the skin, it began to drain the life away from its owner. Akmotesh felt the strength in the cultist's grip slacken, and, when it became weak enough for him to escape, he wrenched himself free with a twist of the attacker's wrist. The guard fell to his knees, weakened by his drained vitality. The other, meanwhile, came to his fellow's aid and swung at the transgressor with a meaty fist. The agile warrior priest deftly ducked the blow and countered with a swift and powerful series of strikes to his opponent's midsection. When he was satisfied that the fight had been taken out of the intimidating thug, he made his escape and dashed out of the chamber, never to return. Akmotesh sat in his sanctum amid the glow of embers as he stared at the various statuettes and artifacts of his native Chem. He had failed in his mission. His cover had been abandoned. But he wasn't ready to admit defeat yet. It was becoming more and more obvious the Brotherhood of the Black Star held dark secrets, and he was determined to unearth them. But he couldn't do it alone. His faith and devotion to Anubis made it impossible for him to progress in the cult. What he needed was a partner, someone who lacked his own strong morals, who was comfortable with taking and breaking oaths, and who was adept at lying and skullduggery, but who, at the same time, had enough of a sense of duty to be loyal to him. But where could he find someone like that? "So let me get this straight," Vendar said, leaning back in his chair. "You want me to help you infiltrate a cult?" "Yes," replied Akmotesh, trying his best to concentrate through the din of the public house's drunken revelers. "The Brotherhood of the Black Star. Have you heard of them?" "Have I heard of them? Those rats have agents in practically every back alley, public house, and gambling den in this city. Seems you can't even turn around these days without bumping into one of the bastards. What do you know of them?" The handsome, muscular rogue took a pull from his drinking jack, wiping his mouth with gusto. "Not much. Just that they claim their god exists on Earth. I don't buy it. What god in his right mind would want to live in this cesspit?" Akmotesh paused as a drunken patron stumbled into him, bumping his shoulder. "I suspect they have ill intentions. Thievery, maybe even murder." "Aren't all religions that way?" Vendar chuckled, before quickly adding, "Just a joke, Your Grace." He had seen firsthand the extent of the chemist priest's power, and didn't wish to tempt his wrath. "So will you aid me? My priestly vows preclude me from infiltrating too far. I'm willing to pay you for your efforts." Vendar rubbed his chin. Yeah, I'll do it. I never did trust those characters. Always suspected them of being up to no good. Don't worry too much about payment. I know you're good for it. Just let me have any spoils we come across when taking these folks down, and we'll worry about the rest later." It was easy for Vendar to gain entrance into the Brotherhood of the Black Star. His everyday lifestyle often put him in touch with the shadier aspects of city life, and it was in these dens of amorality where the agents of the Brotherhood waited, watching for the down and out, the hopeless and lost, in the same way a coyote eyes a herd of deer, ready to pounce on the weak and injured. He gained admittance to their meetings and learned their ways. "What do you make of their laws?" Vendar asked Akmotesh one evening. They had to hold their meetings in darkened rooms with flickering candles so as to keep their associations discreet to prying eyes. The ones about copper and abstaining from certain foods. Akmotesh rubbed his head and furrowed his brow. "I don't know. There are some religions who place seemingly trivial prohibitions upon things in order to show devotion to their gods. But why would the Brotherhood bother with it? It's almost as though they truly believed in Zurzulzig." "So you think it's all a lie about this Zurzulzig? Do you think they really have a god living in some secret ziggurat somewhere in this land?" Akmotesh asked. Vendar shrugged. "No, I figured it was a ruse to get people's money, or perhaps their minds and labor, seeing as how so many of them are poor and destitute. But many strange and unnatural things walk this earth. Both you and I have seen them." Akmotesh said nothing but nodded in agreement. Vendar continued, "Zurzalzig, what a strange name for a god. Does it mean anything to you, your grace? Some foreign language, maybe?" "None that I know of. Most likely a nonsense combination of syllables for a god that doesn't exist." "But why choose something so difficult to pronounce? Why not Zorath or Rogam? Something that rolls off the tongue with greater ease. Zurzalzig almost sounds like something an infant would say, or some kind of animal's growl." Akmotesh admitted he had a point. Weeks passed, and then months. Vendar was more successful than Akmotesh had been. Indeed, he was very successful, fully immersing himself in his role, swearing loyalty to the cult and duping the Brotherhood's more influential members into believing he was truly devoted. But, as Akmotesh feared would inevitably happen, they hit a stumbling block. "They want you to perform an assassination, then?" Akmotesh said to Vendar in candlelight. "That's the gist of it, yes. The target is an apostate, someone who was once a valued member of the Brotherhood but who got out. Now, I don't know all the details, but it seems as though he learned something they don't want the public to know. They figured I'm pretty much their lapdog, and they know I have a bit of combat experience, so they pegged me as their man to make sure he keeps quiet." Vendar watched Akmotesh's face intently. He hoped that the priest, who always seemed to have a solution at hand, would provide an easy answer to their dilemma. When the Kemite remained pensively silent, Vendar added, "What are we going to do?" Akmotesh thought for several minutes. At length his gaze met Vendar's. "You're going to poison him," he answered. "Poison him?" Vendar repeated. "You're not speaking sense." "As a priest of Anubis, I have extensive knowledge of various drugs and toxins that cause death, or the illusion of death. I can configure an admixture which, when imbibed, will place he who ingests it into a trance-like state for several days. Using this, we can make it seem as though you have truly poisoned the target. In the reality, he will be in a dreaming trance. His supposed death will remove him from the Brotherhood's attention, and he will be free to escape the city." Later, in his sanctum, the chemist priest prepared a mixture from the powdered wings of the Black Death beetle. He sealed this in a small vial and carried it to the residence of Umar Trab, the one whom Vendar was to murder. "Are you Umar Trab?" Akmotesh asked the bald, thin man who answered the door. The resident silently regarded him with nervous eyes for a moment. Akmotesh sensed he was deciding whether or not his answer would cause his death. It was all the answer the priest needed. "The Brotherhood of the Black Star wishes you dead. I am here to help you escape." Umar's eyes grew wide. The Brotherhood? No, May I come in?" Akmotesh asked. The question seemed to bring Umar back to his senses, and with a hard swallow and hesitant nod, he stepped aside. "Who are you?" Umar blurted once the door closed behind them. "Who I am is of little concern at this point," Akmotesh replied cryptically. "I simply represent those who wish to see the Brotherhood of the Black Star unmasked for what they truly are. Why do they wish you dead?" "I used to be a member. I partook in their ceremony of initiation and donated much of my wealth to them. But as I learned more and more about them, the less I liked. As you can see, they don't look favorably on those who desert the faith, and I eventually learned they assassinate those whom they believe to be threats. I couldn't keep my allegiance to that." He then added, "Ironic, isn't it?" "I'm here to make sure the same doesn't happen to you," Akmotesh said, "but you must do as I say." "What do I need to do?" Akmotesh reached into his tunic and procured the vial he had prepared. "You must swallow this. It's important that, after imbibing the mixture, you place yourself somewhere people can see you, as it will place you into a trance. To those who witness you, it will appear as though you have succumbed to poison, which in some ways you will have, and your body will be subsequently interred in the catacombs. About a day later, you will regain consciousness. You are not to panic. Though you will be alone and surrounded by the dead, I will use my connections and devices to gain access to the place of your interment, whereupon I'll come to meet you and lead you to freedom. Unfortunately, you will not be able to return to the city until the Brotherhood of the Black Star is disbanded, but I think you will find it preferable to the alternative." Umar's eyes widened in terror once again. "You're asking me to be buried alive," he protested. "What if something goes wrong? What if you're unable to find where they put me? I could starve to death alone in the dark. I have my ways. You can trust me." Akmotesh assured him. In reality, he knew there were a number of things that could cause problems with his plan, but there was no sense worrying about them at this point. Suddenly, Umar's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Can I? I don't even know who you are. How do I know you're not my assassin, and that drug is some kind of deadly poison? You don't, said Akmotesh calmly, but you do know the Brotherhood of the Black Star has marked you for death. I'm here offering you a chance to escape. I may be lying, but maybe not. If you trust me and I'm lying, you will die. If you trust me and I'm telling the truth, you'll be free. If, however, you don't trust me at all, the Brotherhood will see to it that you die anyway. Umar considered this for a moment. Why can't I just leave now and avoid all of this? The Brotherhood will know you've escaped. They will track you down and make sure you stay quiet. Umar once again fell silent for several moments. At length he reached out a trembling hand. Do I swallow all of it at once? He asked.